Newscast live stream. I wanted to come to you one more time before we head into the weekend, and who knows, I may be coming to you throughout the weekend, depending on what President Trump decides. Will the United States take action against the Iranian regime as the regime continues to slaughter demonstrators in the streets by the thousands? Now, these protests have lasted now nearly 3 weeks. They started in Tehran and spread across the country very quickly on December 28th. Hard to believe, today's January 16th, almost 3 weeks, that over 1 million Iranians have been in the streets in cities and towns across that country. And now we are at a very pivotal moment. President Trump has vowed to help. He literally said, help is on the way. He posted on social media a few days ago. He's promised to intervene if the Iranian regime slaughters its own people. Guess what? We've got reports that at least 12,000, probably much more than that, maybe as many as 20,000 Iranians have been killed in less than 3 weeks by the regime. It's mass slaughter, it's butchery. We're hearing of reports of bodies piled up on the streets. President Trump promised to intervene if that happens. He promised help is on the way. And my concern, folks, is if that help doesn't come soon, then this revolution, this mini revolution against this wicked, demonic, radical Islamic regime will be snuffed out. So we're watching and waiting. We've been giving you updates all week here on The Watchman. And a pivot point here. Now, we want to get into the Iranian regime's threats against President Trump. You see the title and thumbnail for this live stream. But bear this in mind as we head into the weekend. Oftentimes, Trump has taken action in the foreign policy realm around this time. I think most recently, Venezuela was 2 a.m., 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning, the operation in Venezuela 2 weeks ago. I think of Operation Midnight Hammer, the destruction of Iran's nuclear facilities back in June. That happened, I guess around 3 a.m. Iran time on a Saturday night. Early Sunday morning in Iran, and even going back to his first term, he took out Qasem Soleimani early on a Friday morning. So there's a precedent there that Trump many times will act on the weekend. We have U.S. military assets still streaming towards Iran. An update here on that, a U.S. warship, the USS Abraham Lincoln. Let's check the progress. It's continuing its path towards Iran right now, the USS Abraham Lincoln. It has not slowed down. It continues unabated on its way to the Middle East. And the United States reportedly is putting assets in place while at the same time pulling assets out of places like Iraq that could be targets for Iranian retaliation. So all the pieces are being put in place. Many thought that the U.S. would have struck by now, especially considering President Trump's threats against the Iranian regime and the protest intensifying, the Iranian people encouraged and spurred on by President Trump's support and encouragement. But there's a lot of dynamics here. There have been phone calls over the past few days, 2 separate phone calls, including one today, apparently, or yesterday, I'm sorry, between the Prime Minister, Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and President Trump. And these reports, and I'm not sure you can believe them, were saying that Bibi urged Trump to delay the strikes. I find that hard to believe that Bibi would urge a U.S. president to not strike Iran. Very hard to believe. The only possible scenario I could think there would be that Bibi wants to take the time to get Israel's missile defenses and the homeland, etc., in order before the inevitable Iranian retaliation against Israel, which Iran has promised it's going to do. And you see the second half of the title of today's live stream. Israel is on high alert right now. Israeli officials say they are prepared offensively to go on the offense if they need to, and they're prepared for defensive measures if the Iranian regime decides to start firing ballistic missiles. If this report, I don't know which mainstream media outlet it came from, but they all kind of pick it up together and run with it. If it's to be believed, then I think the only possible scenario would be Bibi saying to President Trump, hey, let us get our assets in place a little bit. But I find this report hard to believe. But all sorts of reporting, my head's about to explode, and probably yours as well. If you're following on X, which is a great news source. But man, oh man, there are reports coming in fast and furiously, all sorts of different scenarios and rumors and scuttlebutt behind the scenes and anonymous sources. It's just like, you know what, at this point, it's in God's hands. And let's see what happens. And in terms of President Trump and his decision making, he's made all the right moves in the Middle East, by and large, during his 2 terms. He's taken great steps towards transforming the region. And he, more than anyone, has laid the hammer down on the Iranian regime and put them on the brink, pushed them up against the wall, dating back to his first term. I want to break that down in a minute, and I want to break down these threats, which I take very seriously, folks, by the Iranian regime against President Trump. A threat last week, and now a threat just 2 days ago, a serious assassination threat against the president. We want to break that down, the ramifications of that, and a little bit more about, okay, where is this going? And what if Trump doesn't strike? What if the U.S. does not strike? What does that say? What kind of message does it send? Look, Trump has been a man of his word. He's followed through on 99% of his threats over his 2 terms, especially in the foreign policy realm. And a lot of this, I think, and I mentioned this on yesterday's newscast, is a swerve, I would call it. It's intentional misdirection. It's psychological warfare, where he's saying, no, I'm not going to do anything. Maybe I'll do it tonight. Maybe I'll do it next week. It's keeping the Iranian regime on edge. It's keeping the world on edge. And that's exactly the way Trump likes it, because it creates the element of surprise. Remember, Operation Midnight Hammer, when the United States struck those Iranian nuclear facilities, the Iranians didn't think it was coming. They believed the mainstream media reports that there was daylight between Bibi and Trump. They weren't on the same page. Trump wasn't going to do anything. So we had a situation where top Iranian military officials, generals, were sleeping in their own bed as the 12-day war started and Israel started dropping bombs, quite literally, and killed a bunch of them. So there could be a misdirection here. There's a very good chance that's it. But we'll break it down a little bit more. And I want to get into these assassination threats. But before I do, I mentioned yesterday's newscast. If you miss any of our newscasts, any of our live streams, you can check them out here in our archives. And while you're there, be sure to archives right under videos, right under newscasts. It's all right there. And while you are there, a very helpful reminder, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Hey, we came to you, I think, 5 times this week because this story is heating up, the Iran story. And over the weekend, look, you want to know if we're coming to you live with breaking updates. So make sure to subscribe. It's completely free. And click the notification bell. You'll get the notification. Hey, Stacks is live on the Watchman, and we're breaking down. The fighter jets are in the air. Bombs are being dropped. Whatever the case is, we'll bring you breaking news updates for such a time as this. By the way, side note, this is a bit of a crazy statistic. My team tells me that some 70% of our regular viewers are not subscribed. I don't get that. So come on now, be sure to subscribe and join us. And that's not for our glory or our edification, but the more subscribers we have, the more YouTube will recommend these videos to our viewers around the world. And the more people will learn biblical truth, current events, breaking news from an unapologetically biblical perspective. We want everyone to get the message. And we've got viewers around the world. So the more people get the message, the better, because in case you haven't noticed, I mentioned the mainstream media a minute ago. There's a lot of misdirection in that realm. And in the podcast world, the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, et cetera, we need to have voices that present the truth and can stand against that madness and those falsehoods. So be sure to subscribe and let's spread the word together. Okay. I mentioned those assassination attempts or threats, God forbid, an attempt against President Trump. Here was the first one on Wednesday. And by the way, I'm going to get into a little bit about what Trump is saying. And he put out, I should mention this at the top. He was speaking to reporters earlier today, and he basically put out a bit of a mixed message and saying, look, I decided not to strike because they said, was it Arab pressure? Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Oman, they're telling you not to strike. And I don't know why Qatar, I know, but why would the Saudis not want the United States to strike Iran? The Saudis and Iran are bitter rivals for Islamic supremacy in the Muslim world. So that's kind of a head scratcher. unless the Saudis and the other Oman and the rest are concerned that, wow, just like during the Arab Spring, which quickly unraveled into an Islamist winter, if you remember that, Egypt, Tunisia, et cetera, the Muslim Brotherhood was taking power. Are the Saudis, the Omanis, et cetera, are they concerned? Are they saying, okay, if the Iranian people rise up and they overthrow their oppressors, could our people rise up and overthrow us? Maybe that's some of their thinking. But these regimes, the Saudis in particular, have been petrified about the growing Iranian superpower in their midst for years. And that's one reason the Abraham Accords happened. The Arab nations kind of cleaved closer to Israel. They see Israel as a strong horse in the region. And they were worried, gravely worried about Iran. So were the Saudis kind of rebooting and saying, look, Iran's really weak right now. We can kind of rally the troops in the Muslim world, not literally rally the troops, but kind of circle the wagons in the Muslim world and focus more on that. Maybe a peace accord with Israel's off the table. Who knows? Expect the unexpected in the world's most volatile and unpredictable region, the Middle East. But all that said, I'm just shaking my head because the Saudis, to anyone who would listen over the past decade plus, have been warning about a nuclear Iran. And now there's a golden opportunity to send this wicked regime into the ash heap of history, and the Saudis don't want to do it. It doesn't quite make sense to me. And that's what, folks, we really need discernment right now, and wisdom and clarity, Holy Spirit wisdom and discernment to really discern what's happening right now and to weed through all the information, the disinformation. So God is on the throne, and we know that, but we'll call it like we see it, and we'll share it all with you, and you make the decision. But Trump said today that he is holding off, not because of Arab pressure, because the Saudis are telling him not to or asking him not to, but because the Iranians apparently were supposed to execute or hang 800 people yesterday, and they didn't do it. So Trump's saying, look, we pressured them to not execute all these people, so I held off for now. That's essentially what he's saying. But again, is it misdirection? We don't know. I mean, look, if Trump's tweets and his pressure campaign were able to save Iranian lives, that's great. But that's only in the short term. Yeah, okay, they may not execute these 800 people this week, but what's to say they won't next week? They've already murdered close to 20,000. This is the problem here. If you don't deal with the Iranian regime now, when it's at its absolute low point, you're just kicking the can down the road. And eventually you are going to have to deal with these demonic jihadi Islamists who will not change. They will not change their spots. The jihadi leopard does not change its spots. This is who they are. I've said this many times on the live stream. If it's your first time hearing this or watching us, know this: evil is relentless. It does not stop unless it is utterly crushed once and for all. Demonic evil of this nature, like we see in Iran's regime, like we see with Hamas, like we see with Hezbollah, unless they're completely wiped out and destroyed, they're going to keep coming and keep coming. This is what they do because they're demonically driven. Who are they without that? Without violence and jihad, who would they be? This is their sole rationale for being, their sole rationale for existence, to maim, murder, and destroy like their father, the devil. So this is a golden opportunity that we cannot waste. And if you want an idea about the nature of this regime, these threats to President Trump, finally, I'm getting around to it, apologies, but on Iranian state TV on Wednesday, they showed a graphic of the failed assassination attempt of President Trump from Butler, PA, back in July 2024. And this is Iranian state TV. And the graphic went up, and along the video, this clip said, "This time, the bullet will not miss the target. This time, the bullet will not miss the target," meaning President Trump. That's Iranian state TV. That's Iranian regime TV. That's a direct assassination threat against the President of the United States. And on January 19th, this clip is just starting to circulate. We had a similar one where a top Iranian official said, the clip just disappeared, but he called President Trump, this is a funny one, a yellow, funny in a not so funny way, a yellow, filthy dog, and he should be killed. It's a top Iranian official. So that's two assassination threats from this regime. in the past 2 weeks. And you might say, wow, that's really an escalation. Not really, because they've been threatening to assassinate President Trump for years. We know of at least 2 credible assassination plots engineered by the Iranian regime against President Trump in the run-up to the 2024 election. So look, we know they've had assets on the ground in the United States. We've had Iranian operatives arrested on U.S. soil. They had, during President Trump's first term, as it closed out in particular, basically bounties on the head of President Trump, on the head of Mike Pompeo, the former Secretary of State, John Bolton, the former National Security Advisor, who later had a falling out with President Trump, and Brian Hook, who worked on the Iran portfolio at the State Department. All basically had bounties on their heads from the Iranian regime. This is serious stuff, folks. And they had people on the ground here in the United States where I'm sitting right now. So I don't take these threats lightly at all. And hopefully this is trickling back to President Trump. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy to me that would, when people are hatching plots to kill him, would take that lightly and kind of just brush it off. We'll put it that way. So Israel, by the way, I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to mention it again as I'm petting my dog. You just stopped up on my lap. High alert, and this is a key factor here. If Iran is hit, and I think President Trump's weighing this as well, and this may be one of the reasons for the delay in a strike, I think he's got to do something at this point. I mean, after saying help is on the way, et cetera, because everyone's watching, China, Russia, and look, Trump has shown again and again he's a man of his word. He has shown strength and boldness and decisive leadership in the eyes of the world for years now. But this may be the biggest test. And the United States needs to decide, the United States needs to decide what it's going to do here. Is the goal just to send a message to Khamenei and the regime? Hey, you've killed people. He did this in 2017, did President Trump, with Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Assad gassed his own people. President Trump fired some missiles to send a message. Is it just a case of, okay, you crossed my red line. You are slaughtering people in the streets. I told you not to do it, and I told you there'd be hell to pay if you do it. So we are going to strike, meaning the United States, and perhaps in tandem with Israel, who knows? We are going to strike crucial regime command centers. The command centers that send out what I call the skull crackers, the Basiji, that Iranian paramilitary unit, the goon squad that kills and murders and maims and beats people in the streets. Could the U.S. target Basiji headquarters and Basiji command centers? Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, of course, the IRGC, which oversees the Basiji and is the main power broker in that nation, has a hand in everything. They're more powerful than, say, the Nazi SS. That's how powerful the IRGC is. They answer only to the Supreme Leader. Does the United States hit IRGC and Basiji command centers, assets, individuals, leaders as a message? Okay, you guys were the ones who were slaughtering people. Well, here's your comeuppance. Or is this a broader war where the United States, President Trump is saying, you know what? This regime has caused nothing but chaos, again, murder, mayhem for decades, for nearly half a century, for nearly 50 years, 47 years to be precise, since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. Does President Trump say, you know what? Enough is enough. We've got them now on the ropes like never before. Their nuclear program's been destroyed. Half of their ballistic missile stockpiles, many of their missile launchers have been destroyed. Their economy is in tatters. You see the people in the streets. That's one reason. They're fed up in general, but the economy ain't helping. The people are just suffering. There's been a water crisis, droughts in Iran, major droughts in Tehran. It's all kind of lining up. Their proxies have been destroyed, Hezbollah, Hamas. It's all lining up. If not now, when? So President Trump could say, look, we're going to topple this regime. Now, the next logical question, who's waiting in the wings? Is it Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, who was deposed, obviously, in 1979 in the revolution? Reza Pahlavi, I believe, is based in the DC area. From all accounts, a great guy. From everything I hear, I have not met him yet. And they've been chanting for him in the streets of Iran, apparently. Is he a viable option? Many believe he is. How that works, I don't know. How he gets in power in Iran, we shall see. But he's someone who's pro-America, pro-Israel, who loves and respects the ancient, proud Persian culture. Remember, Iran is ancient Persia. Modern-day Iran was ancient Persia. So we shall see. The third option, to do nothing, does not seem like a very viable option to me. But look, I think the president is probably weighing, and Bibi as well, if the regime thinks it's going down, will it go out with guns blazing? Now, we've heard reports, and I've reported it here on The Watchman, that Ayatollah Khamenei may look for exile in Moscow, where Bashar al-Assad, ironically enough, is also living in exile right now, a guest of Vladimir Putin. And his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, who some have said would be his successor as supreme leader, he's apparently shipping assets out of the country, and other Iranian leaders are as well. I tend to think that Khamenei, who is a true apocalyptic ideologue, will go down with the ship, and he'll murder his own people and launch everything but the kitchen sink: ballistic, cruise missiles, drones, everything. If he knows he's going out and he's going to die and it's the end of the regime, I don't think he's going to go out with a whimper. God forbid, I hate to say it. And I think the United States and Israel are probably considering that as they consider the scale of the operation. If we go all in, regime change, and we make clear we're going to topple them, are they going to just, again, throw everything but the kitchen sink at us, at U.S. military bases, at Israel itself, destroy oil and gas fields intentionally to affect the world markets, try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, that strategic waterway? These are doomsday scenarios, of course. I think the goal would be to decapitate the regime and send it into disarray before they could even push those buttons and start launching those missiles or launch a good deal of them. But these are all calculations, right? This is a big deal. This is not some minor operation. We'll just say that. So a lot of calculations here. Israel, thank God, has great missile defenses. Look, Iron Dome, David Sling, the Arrow missile defense system, now Iron Beam, the missile, the laser-based missile defense system, but a lot to consider here. So I think the perfect way to end this and head into the weekend, and I may be back with you tonight, tomorrow, Sunday, who knows where this is going, is pray. Pray for President Trump, for wisdom and discernment, for Prime Minister Netanyahu, wisdom, discernment, clarity as they make decisions. Pray for the Iranian people. For most of all, pray for the Iranian people, the main victims of this wicked regime. Freedom for Iran. Freedom for Iran. It's home, by the way, to the world's fastest growing church. Despite relentless persecution, these underground churches in Iran are thriving. You can't stop the gospel. So keep all of this in your prayers. Have a great weekend. Again, I may see you soon. Who knows? But until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.